Good afternoon, everyone, and a very good morning to those joining us from any of the European time zones. This is the 15th session in our bi-monthly SG Declares and Shares series. In the way of a brief introduction, Construction Declares, now known as Built Environment Declares, is an online petition uniting all strands of construction and the built environment. It started in May 2019 and now has over 9,200 signatories in various disciplines and in 28 countries across the globe. The number of professionals engaged in the signatory companies is now over 1 million employees. In early January 2020, Singapore joined the movement with both SG architects and SG structural engineers declaring. In June 2020, we set up the SG and the Global Environmental Consultants Declare platform. This means that any environmental consultants across the globe who wish to join will be helped by us in Singapore. About the same time, the Singapore landscape architects joined the declaration too. We now have a total of 55 Singapore-based signatory companies. Today, we have two speakers, Natalie Seisser and Anna Itkin. Anna will speak about responsible corporations and Natalie will speak about plastic and circularity. Eva Castro, my dear friend, has kindly accepted to moderate today's session. In the way of a very brief introduction to Eva, she is a professor of practice at Architectural and Sustainable Design pillar within Singapore University of Technology and Design, where she currently is a coordinator of Core Studio 2 and the Master's Advanced Lab Inhabiting New Futures Oceanic Environments. Eva is the co-founder of Form Axioms Lab, a territorial agency for academic research purposes operating from within SUTD. Over to you, Eva.
Thank you so much, Hussein, and thank you for helping organizing all of these and putting me in touch with Natalie and Anna. So we will have the first speaker, who's Natalie Seisser. She's the founder of a new kind of studio, an impact design studio, breaking the boundaries between doing good and doing good business, between what is beautiful and what is needed. Natalie believes in the power of the collective and the responsibility of the designer to create something that is meaningful to the people and the planet, to start conversations and drive a change through action. She's currently working on a publication called Reload.Earth, between the intersection of art and climate action. Part of the Climate Designers Network, she's also building an SEA chapter in Southeast Asia, where climate is at the core of her creative work. Thank you very much, Natalie, for being in here with us today. I pass you the word and we will have the questions at the very end for both of you. Thank you.
Okay, then I will share my screen to the presentation. Just put it full screen. Okay. Now, welcome everyone. So my name is Natalie Seisser. So I'm a half French and German, and today I'm going to tell you how I had to redefine creativity. So, and I'm going to tell you about my story. So I grew up in Moorea. Moorea is a small volcanic island in Polynesia in the South Pacific Ocean. So it's just in front of an island called Tahiti, as you might have heard about it. So for me, growing up in Moorea was the most beautiful place on earth. So nature is lush. There is a strong energy called the mana, which is the life force, and that connects all things. And Maui people have a deep connection to nature and culture. There's also rich biodiversity, and also so it's an extraordinary habitat for whales. So every year, humpback whales migrate in these warmer waters between July and October to mate and give birth as the environment in the Antarctic is too cold to their calves. So, and then they head back towards the South Pole. That is also when, at that time, I started to do freediving. So after Tahiti, there's no school in Tahiti. And so I moved to Paris to study, and I started to work as a brand and strategy designer and working for luxury and FMCG brands. After about 13 years, then my work brought me to Singapore about 7 years ago to work with the biggest fast-moving consumer goods company as a packaging creative director. I still did some freediving when I arrived in Southeast Asia because I was very passionate about the oceans, but then I was also very involved in ocean conservation. So I started to join beach cleaning up groups and started to really look at the trash that we would find at the beaches. And slowly I realized, and also I saw that I was actually picking up my own packaging. And so meaning I was actually designing trash. And so I started to do some self-introspection and research. And according to marketing experts, the average person sees between 4,000 and 10,000 ads in a single day in 2022. So I realized that I'm creating more and more choice. Like, for example, this is the example of the Oreo packaging. There's about hundreds of different flavors. So these are all the different, and then choices and a world of always more choice. So this is the Amazon warehouse. So then I was trying to question, what is my role as a designer and what are the consequences of my action and am I contributing to the problem? So what if my choices I make as a designer leave no choice for other communities impacted? So this is when I started to really learn about systems mapping. So this is a wide complex systems where so system mapping is about identifying the elements within a system and connecting them. So meaning looking at their interdependence. So for instance, we have the plastic life cycle and its impact on people and the environment. So really quickly, when we look at the different stages, so we have the extraction of fossil fuels, then we have the design part, the production, the distribution, consumption, but also what are the impacts on the people and the environment. So there's a waste, pollution, wildlife ecosystems degradation, health risk, environmental injustices, and greenhouse gas emissions. So where am I within the systems? I'm actually here, the design. So I was seeing that the design is actually at the very forefront of the system, and there's about 8.5 billion metrics of plastics produced since 1950. So what's happening when you do this mapping, systems mapping, is that, as Peter Sanji said, none of us see the system. We see our own part based on our own background and history, and we all think we see the most crucial part. And what is happening further below of the system, there's waste. So as today, we have 79% of the plastic is in the landfill and the environment. And as it creates then, a lot of pollution. And so every minute, one garbage truck of plastic is dumped into our oceans. And these are the communities that are impacted. So what about the production of plastics? So at the current rate of consumption, plastic production is actually set to quadruple by 2050. So BP expects plastics to account for 95% on net growth in demand for oil in 2020 and 2040. So we would say, what about recycling? So actually recycling, as we remember the 79% that in the landfill as plastic worldwide, meaning there's only 9% recycled and 12% that is incinerated. For plastic in Singapore, it's about 6% that is collected and then sent for recycling, which mostly is industrial waste, and 94% is incinerated in landfills. So with the recycling currently, if the public thinks that recycling is working, then they're not going to be as concerned about the environment. So we have to look at then the different systems. So we know the linear economy that we take, make, use, and waste. Then, as we saw, there's a recycling economy that is take, make, use, then we have the recycle part, and then make, use, and then it still finishes in waste. But then the circular economy, as we need to rethink at the very first front if we really need that product, but also refusing. And then we have the reducing part, but then also the reusing. So it gets much more complex, but also we have all different types of R's, like the returning, the repair, the refurbish, the remanufacture, the repurpose, the remake, the replenish, the reinvent, and also rent, and then the recycle. So meaning actually what we need to do is turning off the consumption tap. So I have a question. Who do you think are the first plastic consumers in the world? Actually, very sadly, it's the whales, like beautiful whales that I see in the South Pacific. And so today we use plastic, a material that is designed to last forever, for actually products that are designed to last minutes. So when I feel we need to redesign creativity, what do I mean? I mean, first of all, as creatives, we need to tell the truth about the emergency. So you can do this in boardrooms, in meetings, in private, conversations. Tell this message across campaigns, speak to your brands, and tell them also to do the same. Then we need to switch to a collaborative and inclusive mindset. So we have to realize that we live in a toxic system, and a part of us is also toxic. So we have to shift from this competitive mindset to a truly collaborative one. This was said by Extinction Rebellion. But also, as we see consumerism, like sustainable consumerism is not the answer. So designing new products, even if they're sustainable, is still consumerism, and we need to buy less, not based on consumption, but how can we design experiences, better systems, and share collectively in a more holistic way? So we need to create equal opportunities and access to wealth for entire communities. So actually you have more power than you think. As designers, we can help clarify and amplify messages of abundance, well-being, and belonging for all. We cannot only have the doom and gloom, but we really need to see that actually there's a much better well-being, for everyone. So if we craft our message better, so also saying no to fossil fuel or high carbon clients or polluters, and also of course push back on greenwashing. So this point is about not reinventing the wheel. While many of us already are working in this space, we want to devise our own solutions. So the idea is to really building, a sustainable society is a massive, complex, and system-wide challenge. So practice joining other movement and amplifying solutions and calls to action that already exist. So conclusion, we need to build a new creative culture. And also this is not always, it's a big challenge. Everyone also is in everyone's journey is very different. It can be very challenging. So it's important to also find support wherever you're at, feeling inspired, learn and find people you can connect with. So this is my tribe that I found. So so these are different hubs for designers and creative professionals from all industries who are committed to using our creative skills for climate action. So mostly there's just a few, but Creatives for Climate, the Clean Creatives, Climate Designer, and Design Declares Emergency, and the Unschool. So I'm actually a co-chapter leader for Climate Designers Southeast Asia, and we do Singapore meetups every month. So if you are in Singapore, you're very welcome to join us and share your knowledge. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Natalie. That was great. Always nice to hear from you and what you are up to. So let me just move before we get into any conversation or accepting questions to Anna. By the way, let me just ask all public that is viewing us today to please post your questions to the Q&A so that I can help passing them through to both Natalie and Anna at the end of the chat. So getting back to Anna, she's an educator, sustainability consultant, researcher, and author. After working nearly 2 decades at the vanguard of scientific research and innovation, in 2016, initiated or co-founded the Inceptory, sustainability-led innovation consulting firm set up to create ripples of a positive change, addressing the ever more pressing need for businesses to simultaneously become economically, socially, and environmentally responsible, resilient, and regenerative, and works with organizations to unlock the potential of their people, materials, systems through advisory and consultations, workshops, training sessions, and in-house support. And the floor is all yours whenever you want, please.
Thank you very much, Eva. And thank you very much to Singapore Built Environment Declares for inviting me to speak today. And of course, thank you very much to everyone who's here today to listen. So before I begin, actually, I want to ask you, the audience, a question. And if you can help me to answer, that would be wonderful. The question is, what does sustainability mean to you? And you can join either via slido.com and then typing in the number, or via QR code. I'll give you maybe a minute to answer. So you just type in a word or 2 words, as many words actually as you want, but one at a time. And I will try to share, my screen so we can all see. I've been having some issues with Zoom and sharing. So hopefully, okay. Everybody were able to, no, I'm not seeing any responses. Everybody okay to log in? Okay, I'm seeing now. I will try to share the screen. Okay, Ruben, I will try. I'll try so people can see the responses. Okay, can I? Okay. I'm hopeful everybody can see. Yeah, okay. So we're seeing greenwashing, justice, impact for long term. Oh, Enron 2.0. I'm not aware of that, but that's interesting. Justice, protecting natural resources, future, our children's future. Okay. Great. As you continue, I can just say that, as you can see, there are many ideas of what sustainability is actually. Yeah. Equality, impact for long-term, greenwashing. Yes. That's right. Web Earth. Okay, cool. Impact for long-term. I will stop sharing. And if someone can help me to share. Yes. Right. So, in fact, sustainability remains, as you can see, an elusive concept, and it means different things to different people. There was a research performed at the University of Virginia and Technical University of Dresden that found more than 100 definitions of sustainability in literature. So it differs between disciplines and between different people, and everybody have this different understanding. But if sustainability is anything, I would say it is a vision of the future. Such vision that when an individual or an organization, when they see it, they will know that that is sustainability. And for me, sustainability actually is very well defined by John Ehrenfeld, who said that sustainability is the possibility that humans and other life can flourish on Earth forever. And this really opens up a huge space for what sustainability means. In that sense, various organizations are on in various stages of their journey towards sustainability. Next slide, please. Yes, and some still operate in the kind of old paradigm where we use the resources and often abuse them. Others are in the place of compliance and regulatory requirements. Others have moved on to incremental improvements, and these are very important. But in the flourishing paradigm, I see regeneration, I see abundance, I see generosity, not just as human beings personally, but also as human beings being part of organizations. And this is what brought me to join forces with my brilliant 2 other co-founders and set up the Inceptory, which is a sustainability-led innovation firm. Next slide, please. 7 years ago, thank you. 7 years ago, we set it up because each of us got really disheartened and deeply disillusioned about our respective organizations where we worked for. And we felt that our values were no longer represented in our work. And so the Inceptory was founded with a vision of transforming, regenerating, and positively impacting our planet and humanity through business activities, with all 3 dimensions of the economy, society, and environment, which also includes, Mother Earth, marginalized communities, as well as future generations as stakeholders. So this is a big vision. And we recognize that these dimensions are wholly interconnected and interdependent, and there's no separation between them. And our work essentially is about making those relationships are seen and helping organizations to explore these relationships and understanding the impacts that each part is having on another part. Similar to what Natalie was talking about. We're seeing the world, us and our organizations, as part of a bigger, complex system. So if you rewind to 7 years back and we introducing ourselves as sustainability-led innovation firm, what do you think most people thought? Well, we often received raised eyebrows. I was like, what does that mean? And you're totally right. What did that mean for most of people 7 years ago? So we started looking for a way to show in the simplest possible way what we stand for. And we found the B Corp movement. And I don't know how many of you have heard of it. I'll share a bit more about it in a bit. So B Corp is a vision, is a network, and is a movement. In our current economic system, business is failing its enormous promise to create positive impact while driving large-scale negative impacts. In short, it's putting profit over people and planet. And B in B Corp stands for benefit for all. So the B Global Network mobilizes the B Corp movement to change our economic system to positively impact all stakeholders, workers, communities, customers, and our planet. And they became known, the B Lab is the nonprofit behind it, they became known for certifying B corporations, which are companies that meet high standards of social and environmental performance, accountability, and transparency. As you can see, we were super happy that we got certified in January this year, so almost 1 year ago. Next slide, please. So the movement is driven by a B Lab. A B Lab is a nonprofit network transforming the global economy to benefit all people, communities, and the planet. And the B Lab believes that a different kind of economy is not only possible, but necessary, and that the business can lead the way. So since 2006, they've been advancing this work around the world by certifying B corporations. And as a B Corp, we make a legally binding commitment to bringing benefits, not just to our shareholders, but all business stakeholders. And the way B Corp movement is designed to change this economic system of ours is by changing the rules of the game, because this is how you change the system. Not the parts, but those relationships, the rules of the game. B Lab creates standards, policies, tools, programs that shift the behavior, culture, and structure of capitalism. They also work with lawmakers to go from one country to another to actually create laws that require those companies who want to become B Corp to make it legally binding. And the B Lab mobilizes the entire B Corp community towards this collective action to address society's most critical challenges and to realize this vision of equitable regenerative economy that will work for everybody. So if you go to the website of B Corp, next slide, please. I did that, and I found that there were, and I just typed, because today is about the built environment, and I typed architects, and I typed built environment professionals, and you see that there are hundreds of companies that became B Corp certified. Now, B Corp certification is not the best, is not a golden star, and it's not the end. It's actually just the beginning. Those companies are saying that we're on this journey, we're starting it, and we're there continue, and they're expected to improve every year. And there is a recertification as well, where they're looking at what else have you been doing. When we're talking about this, envisioning new economic system, creating business that can change the future for the world, one cannot not remember or think about the Buckminster Fuller. Next slide, please. I just wanted to kind of finish with that. It's I saw this image, and it was created by Bucky in 1959, when he imagined a vast area of Manhattan covered by a single dome. He proposed that massive amounts of energy could be saved by regulating the whole city's climatic conditions, instead of focusing energy on energy management on individual buildings. So he also imagined macro housing structures that could accommodate up to 1 million people, and cities floating on the sea to escape land constraints. And if we think about it today, some of those ideas actually implemented today, for example, the centralized cooling and heating systems, we know that it can save indeed huge amounts of energy. So what if all professionals in the built environment could work in synergy as one system towards what he defines as a world that works for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation, without ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone? What if? And in the next slide, I just want to say that things made for today are made for better, but things made for tomorrow should be made different. And I'll leave you with those thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna, Natalie. Let me just, whilst we await for some questions from the viewers, let me just start warming up. I think I find a lot of points in common between the two of you. So perhaps instead of initiating by punctual questions, we should just warm up by discovering the similarities of a new discourse, let's say, right? I picked up two of the points of Natalie's presentation that I found, at least for me, the most interesting ones. One is switch to a collaborative and inclusive mindset. And the other one is sustainable consumerism is not the answer. And in a way, if I try to build up, let's say, a narrative between these points and the the conversation with Anna, particularly the one regarding making things different, not making them better, and the kind of a sort of a very elegant yet eloquent critique to capitalism. For me, it seems like there is a convergence in that we need some kind of planetarian effort to change things, to do things different. And what I mean by planetarian effort is an effort that goes beyond frontiers, beyond nationalities, background, even beyond species as such. So can you just kind of elaborate a little bit further? Let me know where you are positioned in relationship to this kind of a brief thought.
Okay, so when you're talking about all the efforts that it needs to be on the bigger scale, but also change is very individual, and I feel it takes courage, it takes courage, but also time to be able, because as you saw with my story, I had to go through all that process to understand what is my place, and how to make that shift is a challenge. And so I feel that is also something about how to make the change is really about also seeing what is my sphere of influence, who am I influence around me, because of course I would like big polluters, and there's so many things I would like bigger change to happen, but sometimes I think it's first of all, sometimes it gets really overwhelming, and I feel yes, we all have our part to play, but I think we just need to look at my sphere of influence and how I can already shift kind of perspectives of that influence, and then slowly changing behavior, but also then changing the system. I get this is kind of how I see it. How I see that we can there's many different of course problems to solve, but first of all that idea that it's seeing what is my main influence. That's why I feel this kind of B Corp and also the climate designers, all these kind of communities have their own kind of behavior changes or any types of change that can then create a ripple effect. I think that's how I envision it for myself. I don't know if that speaks to you.
Thank you for this question. I'm really passionate about everything about systems, and I'm working in this space, and I'm kind of facilitating conversations in this space. And something happened actually yesterday that maybe this will help to kind of exemplify what I mean. My husband was looking on the screen on this image of the universe that was just published recently from Johns Hopkins Institute. And I was and it was showing kind of a slice of a pie and a very round at the end, literally like a pizza slice. And my immediate thought was oh, did they discover that the universe is a circle? And I was wait a second. No, they haven't. Because the observer, us, we're in the center. And this is the slice is as far as and as wide that we can see. And that's it. And there's everything else is our blind, not spot, but a surface, a blind surface. And so this kind of was, oh yeah, of course, that's what it is. And what I invite everybody to do is actually practice this every day to remind ourselves that our perspective is only our perspective. It's not the truth. And I think there are many, many different perspectives that then build the entire system. And when I was thinking about how to change the system, how to influence the system, there are many ways, and there's no one answer right or wrong in that way. But I really like, in this respect, the work done by Theory U and the Presencing Institute, the theory U was created, and a book written by Otto Scharmer, professor from MIT. And essentially, after we're seeing what's going on, we need to start sensing. And after we are sensing, sensing means really understanding all of those different perspectives and sensing what is going to happen, what is about to emerge from this universe of ours, new ideas, new ways of being, new economic system, perhaps. Then the farther we go, the deeper is about us. What is our role in those systems? And what Natalie said, she's looking at her sphere of influence, that is, what are we doing? How are we contributing, or how are we changing or maintaining the same? So I hope that was kind of the answer.
Yes, I think it definitely, I mean, more than an answer, what I was hoping is precisely, to start steering kind of a different way of thinking about ecologies in general, right? And I think there is one question here that it comes exactly towards the same point from the public, which says, should we not move away from the single species mantra of human centricity to the inclusive mantra of climate centricity or planet centricity? And I think within, I like the planet centricity because it helps us to start imagining ourselves within that perspective that you just described, as not only being as human, or whatever we call humans, but being part of a much larger ecology that gives equal importance to other species. But of course, I think this is very difficult to be achieved within a kind of a neoliberal environment where everything is about profit. So I think some of the questions that you raised with your presentation and are sort of geared towards how do we kind of hint at the root of a different way of making business, or a different way of articulating a different form of capitalism, perhaps I should say, an evolution of it. So how do you do that? Meaning you particularly as a consultant working with the business, how do you embed that kind of a sense of urgency and the desire of thinking of different ways about it?
Yes, well, it's $1 million question. It actually takes, I think it takes two things. One is creativity, huge creativity in thinking, really, but also courage. It takes courage. It takes courage from us as consultants, and it takes courage from our clients. And of course, while I try not to stir the boat too much, we are gently trying to put design in those questions for the clients to start thinking about. So one example that I can maybe talk about could be that some time ago, we were asked by an investor, so a group of investors, they had a land in Indonesia, and on that land, they already were producing charcoal from coconuts. They had existing factory, existing asset that was somewhat profitable, but not great. And of course, they wanted to do more with the land that they had. And they came to us to kind of help them to find ways to create more value, incorporate more sustainability into their asset, and help to spot opportunities. So we kind of created interventions working. So our way of working is really co-creation, very collaborative. So we bring our ways of thinking and doing and tools and methodologies and really bring in as many stakeholders as possible to have those conversations and work together and think together, create together. So we were looking at how can they generate increased value, revenue in a holistically sustainable manner. And so what we help them to do is to get over the unconscious and conscious biases and help them to step out of their boxes to see more. So this means kind of helping them to not just see their perspective and their ideas, but what else is possible. So we design those engagements in a way and see far more possibilities than originally envisioned. We provided those different perspectives and we took the system approach as opposed to just one solution. And so, yeah, in this sense, they were really emboldened to do more and to think differently. And so this is one example. Another example was FMCG company, where they wanted for us to work with their employees from different departments in a company that worked on different products and kind of rethink sustainability. So this was really one of our kind of favorite engagements where we got to design activities and learning sessions to question what sustainability is all about. And again, put out those difficult questions and talk about the systems and talk about the intended as well as unintended consequences. And even asking questions, what is better, plastic or paper as a bag? And work on that. So kind of maybe to summarize, we always look for opportunities to educate because we do think education is really the core of what is needed, is to kind of nudge, well, how can we look differently at things? Yeah, and work together, explore the space.
Great answer. And I like particularly the part of education. I think this is why we teach, because we try to believe that there is a possible different future. And I think is a kind of a sort of is a statement that advocates to me for universities and educational systems that are truly independent and autonomous from industry to a certain extent. Because that's when, I don't know, when we go to bed together, education and industry, sometimes some interesting things happen, but sometimes we also lose some kind of a freedom of thought. I have a couple of questions that I think, again, come to contribute to this overall discussion from the public. This is directed to both Natalie and Anna. COP27 talks about a shared fund for developing countries. What are your thoughts on this? And I think I should highlight they talk about it, and there has been an in principle acceptance to it, but I leave it up to the two of you.
Anna, do you want to go first?
Do you want me to go first?
I'm quite, yes, this COP27, I've been, I don't know, but yeah, you go first and we. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's not a new idea, right? I mean, for the previous COPs, within the previous conversations, governments from developed countries did promise, if I believe, 10 billion, 100 billion, something like this, many billions, to be sent to countries that are strongly experiencing climate change, and their economies are not as well developed, and they're already in debt. And experiencing those climate calamities actually brings them really to the brinks of devastation, full devastation. So in my mind, yes, this is a much needed initiative. And just to say that even though this conversation is not a new conversation and countries promised those funds, they weren't delivered. Very tiny percentage actually was delivered. So, and this is, and one of the, in part because there was no proper structure within the global economic system to do that in a relatively, I guess, easy way, I would say. And so I think this is a very good idea to create an entity that will be responsible for that, and this will make it possible to relatively quickly and easy to disperse funds to those in need after, for example, hurricanes that hit, or floods or droughts, things like that. So it will eventually depend on how well it works on the governance structure that is put in place. Now you maybe.
Or we can move on into the next question. We have quite a few. Maybe this can go to Natalie. How can a leading country in Southeast Asia, like Singapore, do more to push through sustainability through the rest of the region?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's what Anna just said, what we said about education. There's somewhere where we also need to, I think, equip teachers, and schools and university to have these subjects embedded in the curriculum, but also at many different levels, at education, at businesses, and it has to go through, most of different sectors. So I feel that could be, that's where maybe Singapore could really push through, and also have, an agenda that is quite ambitious, that I think needs to be a bit more ambitious, I guess, from what we have, and seeing that there are already, many things happening. And but I guess there's, as we know, we always feel that the time is kind of not running out, but we need to accelerate, I think, the solutions we have, to accelerate, really just the education, I think, and accelerating these solutions that we have and put them in place, and progress also in in our society and industries. I think that's maybe what my thought is.
Thank you, Natalie. I've got here a question that I'm sure both of you will fight to answer, from somebody from the public. It reads like this. In a high inflation environment, unusually high interest rates since the 1980s, and the clock ticking towards most countries' net zero targets, I can't think of why countries should notch towards investments into greener tech. I'd like to hear both of your thoughts.
Sorry, I'm reading the question again. Of why countries should nudge towards investment into greener. I like to hear. I don't know where to start.
Why countries should not invest in green tech? Is that the question?
I can't think of why countries should nudge towards.
Is a bit ambiguous in a way. I don't quite understand if the question is why they should, or why should they not. So I guess we can just kind of comment on the reasons, let's say, to move towards kind of forms of investment into green tech. Maybe from your experience, Anna, you've been working with businesses and kind of sensing from the ground that kind of interest towards sustainability.
Yeah. Okay. So there are so many ways I can answer this question. There is definitely interest in technology, and technology is definitely a very important element, a lever to achieve sustainability. But I think what often is being missed or not acknowledged are not even questioned is that by being a technology that addresses sustainability challenge, that does not automatically mean that this solution is sustainable in itself and does not create unintended negative consequences. This is one element. So it's almost like, you know, a story where I think it was in Borneo some years ago that there was a huge issue of malaria. And World Health Organization decided that it's a good idea to spread all the houses and all the environment with DDT, which is a toxic chemical that kills mosquitoes. The unintended, and it did solve the problem of malaria for a while. What happened next, though, that this chemical also killed many other organisms that were important elements within the ecosystem. A bug that was eating other bugs that were protecting the huts of people in there. And without that bug who eats the bed bug, actually the roofs literally started falling on people's heads. People themselves started getting sick. The DDT killed cats and the rat population flourished, transferring more diseases onto the population. So this is where this element of systems thinking is really important, that we need to consider while we're thinking about solutions. We really, really need to think about what are potential, not only positive, but also negative consequences of those solutions might be. And on a broader scale of economy and inflation and everything, well, it's a result of our economic system and the way everything is built. And if you trace back in history, these kind of effects that we are seeing or events that we are seeing are repeated. They're periodic because the behavior of complex dynamic systems is cyclical, right? So I don't have an answer to, you know, if you're asking to know which one is better, there is no answer to that, which one is better. Of course, if one is hungry, one needs to eat before going and reading a book of a famous philosopher to feed their emotional hunger. So there's this basic pyramid of needs that has to be taken into account. But I'm, again, avid advocate of that systems thinking and finding the points within a system, leverage points that when impacted, when acted on, will deliver maximum benefit. And do remember that no solution acts in isolation from everything else. And this is where, if you remember, if you think about the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, the one that kind of connects them all is collaboration, partnerships. And this is really one of the keys to solutions that could be win-win-win solutions. So I hope this sort of answers, maybe not the answer you expected, but this is my answer.
Thanks. I think we have time for one more question. I will send that to Natalie. It reads, if you had a chance to rewind your personal life by 20 years, how would you change your past major decisions like studies, major purchases, with the challenges of the present climate change in mind?
It's it's hard because if I had known, maybe the decisions I made 20 years ago would have been different. But actually, it's quite interesting that I studied packaging designer, and now I'm trying to reduce and stop making packaging. So I think the choices I made were at the time good choices, and I see that now it is just that whatever your past is, you need to understand where you are now and how the future can, how can that be how can you influence that in a better way? How can you really have, you know, that idea of that creativity is, you know, this idea that is a problem solving with purpose. So that's, I think that's very important for me now, is to look at the next 20 years. What can I do better that I've done maybe, you know, in the past? So I think this is, with the experience I have in the past, I need now to, these skills that I have, how can I build better for the future?
Thanks, Natalie. We have many more questions, but I think we are running absolutely out of time to reply to all of them. Let me finish with one of the comments, which says, I would like to thank Natalie and Anna for such an inspiring presentation. Same thing in here. Lovely to get acquainted with your work and to kind of a further expand the conversation into what we are having right now. And I pass the word back to Hossein. Thank you also, everyone, for the questions and listening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Anna and Natalie, for that engaging and informative presentation. And you can see by the number of questions which have been raised, we haven't been able to go through all of them. And thank you, Eva, for masterfully moderating the session for us. The session is recorded and will be put on the YouTube channel within the next few days, so that we can watch again. And for those of us who have missed it, or our friends who missed it, please let them know. And our next session is in 2 months' time, and we look forward to seeing you all there, the attendees and the participants. And thank you again for being with us. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
very much.